Right, right, okay. Well, welcome everyone to Breakfast and Learn. We're delighted to have Sam. How do you pronounce his surname?
Millunchick.
Millunchick. Okay. What's the origin of that?
No idea.
No idea. Right. From Belmont to join us this morning. And without further ado,
Good morning, everyone. If you have any thoughts or comments during the discussion, please feel free to chime in. My community certainly does, and I hope that you will too. Well, what I'd like to talk about this morning for the next couple minutes is what the problem was with Sodom. So, I mean, what have you heard? What was the issue with Sodom? Why did Sodom have to be wiped off the map? Why couldn't it be reformed? Why couldn't it be? Why couldn't they do teshuvah? What was so terrible about what was going on in Sodom? But what were they doing? What was the sin? Immorality, right? So that's generally what we associate with Sodom, right? We all know the word sodomy comes from the root of Sodom, but it turns out that Chazal had a very different idea, and indeed the Tanakh itself has a very different idea about what actually was going on in Sodom. So first of all, we know in source number one, Anshe Sodom they're very bad people, the people of Sodom, but it doesn't exactly say what they were doing, right? And then if you look in source number two, that's from this week's parasha, there's a heavy sin going on in Sodom. Again, doesn't tell us what it is. So Hashem says, I'm going to go down and I'm going to check if what I'm hearing from Sodom is correct. Okay. Now the Chachamim, we're going to see in source number 5, we're going to latch onto this word hakitza'akata. Is it like her screams? Okay. So now the question is, why isn't it hakitza'akatam, like their screams, the screams of the city, of the people in the city? So obviously the easiest answer is hakitza'akata. The reason that it's in a female singular form is because whenever you refer to a city in Hebrew, you refer to a city as a she, a singular female noun. So hakitza'akata means like the screams of the city. However, the rabbis read this a slightly different way, which gives us a little bit more insight into what exactly was going on in Sodom. That was the big problem. But before we do that, I want to look at the Mishnah and Avot, which we're all familiar with, that we read every Shabbat during the summer. And it says like this: there are 4 characteristics that characterize humans. Ha'omer sheli sheli v'shelcha shelcha, zo midah benonit. Somebody who says, what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours. This is a normal type of characteristic. It says the Mishnah continues, V'yesh omrim zo midat Sodom. This is midat Sodom. Midat Sodom is property rights, it seems like. The fact that I say what I own is mine and what you own is yours, why would that be midat Sodom? Why would midat Sodom be, don't steal from me? So already there's something a little bit fishy here. And the Tosefta gives us a little bit more information about what's going on. In source number 4, Anshe Sodom Amru, they said, because we have a very fertile land, right? We have all the food and the resources that we need. We have oil, we have natural gas, we have active mines. We don't need anybody else. Our land is very fruitful by itself. And not only do we not need anyone, we don't want anyone. Right? And we don't want people to come to us. All the immigrants should stay away. Right? That's what they're saying. They're only coming here to steal our resources. These are economic migrants. We don't want them. We don't want immigration to Sodom. We want us to stay who we are by ourselves. So what do they say? Let's close our borders to immigration. We don't want anybody coming in. Says Hashem, you're saying, I'm not going to give any of the good stuff that you've been blessed to other people. No problem. I'll wipe you off the map. So already it seems like what we're seeing in the Tosafta is there's a little bit of a stinginess that characterizes Sodom. A stinginess perhaps related to the fact that they feel like they deserve what they have. Shali, shali, v'shelcha, shelcha. And that stinginess creates a problem that they can't come back from. But it's still not enough. Lots of people are stingy. Lots of people are misers. They don't want to give their money to other people. So what? Why is that a reason to wipe a town off the face of the earth? So let's look at the Midrash that I mentioned before. So the Midrash says, Hakitzakata is not talking about the city. It's talking about a particular individual in the city. Rabbi Yehuda says, they made an announcement in Sodom. Kol mishehu machzik yado befat lechem la'ani lager v'la'evyon yisaref b'esh. Anybody who helps the poor, the destitute, the immigrants to get food, anybody who helps them will be burned at the stake. You're not allowed to help people who are in need in Sodom. Plotit bitoshelo. So you have this woman, Plotit, who's the daughter of Lot. She was married to one of the great men of Sodom, one of the leaders of Sodom. She sees a poor person sleeping rough. He doesn't have any food, doesn't have any money. He's homeless. And she feels bad for him. This is going to have warning signs in Sodom, right? You're not allowed to feel bad for people. So what does she do? Whenever she would go out to draw water in the morning, she would put food into her bucket and take it to this poor person and help him to stay alive. Now, at some point, right, things are going to get a little bit fishy. If you're in Sodom, homeless people are supposed to turn into dead people within 3 days, right? There's no such thing as a homeless person who survives for a week, 2 weeks. How could they? They have no money. No one's feeding them. And at some point, they see that this homeless person is, living a life. He's still alive. And so they say, how is he still alive, this guy? We expected him to be dead a few weeks ago. Until they figured out, they did a little bit of investigation, Sodom police force, and they figured out, this woman is supporting this poor person. So she starts crying out to Hashem, have justice, have mercy on me. That is the cry, say Chazal. That's why the word is hakitzakata, like her cries. Because her cries, not the city's cries, her cries were going before Hashem, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back, as it were. So now we get a much deeper picture into what the problem with Sodom was. The problem with Sodom was that charity was outlawed. You weren't allowed to support another person. Now, and indeed, that's what the pasuk in Yechezkel tells us. This was the sin of Sodom. It was Gan Eden. It had everything that they needed, all the food and the quietude and everything that they needed. But they didn't support the destitute poor. Okay. Now, many people don't support the destitute and the poor. Why is this a reason to uproot? Says the Chamalevich in source number 8. It's because they turned not supporting the poor into a law. They made it illegal to be merciful. They made it illegal to be kind. It wasn't that there was no obligation to be kind. It was that it was illegal to be kind. Now, I believe we can begin to understand why that's so bad. You have a society that doesn't allow for people to support one another, and the society is going to fall apart very quickly. But there's a flip side to this, right? Many of us think that the way to fix a problem is by going to the opposite extreme of that. Okay, I'll give you an example tonight. You have the Jews trying to go into the land of Israel. They send spies. The spies come back. They say the land is bad, blah, 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 right? Hashem punishes them. And at that point, they say, oh, we realize our mistake, we realize our error, let's go to Israel now. Let's just correct the problem in a mechanical fashion. And what does Hashem say? Probably a bad idea. You need to learn your lesson before you can go back to Israel. No, we want to fix the problem. They go and they get wiped out. So we're going to say, okay, how's the way to fix the problem of Sodom? If we got Sodom, the problem with Sodom is stinginess. Let's be not stingy. Let's just let's create a welfare state. But that's just doing the exact opposite. You're correcting one extreme by going to the other extreme. I don't know if you're familiar with the philosopher Ayn Rand. She wrote Atlas Shrugged. Fountainhead, maybe. Okay. So people don't like Ayn Rand because she created a philosophy called objectivism, which essentially says, let me do my own thing, you do your own thing, you're responsible for yourself, and I'm responsible for myself. And people say, oh, that's Sodom. But maybe it isn't. So let's look at source number 9. The fact that a man has no claim on others, i.e., that it is not their moral duty to help him, and that he cannot demand their help as his right, does not preclude or prohibit goodwill among men, and does not make it immoral to offer or to accept voluntary, non-sacrificial assistance. So it says, already we see this is different than Sodom, because Sodom is saying, no, you can't help. All she is saying is, as long as there's no duty to help, it's okay. It is altruism that has corrupted and perverted human benevolence by regarding the giver as an object of immolation and the receiver as a helplessly miserable object of pity, who holds a mortgage on the lives of others. A doctrine which is extremely offensive to both parties, leaving men no choice but the roles of sacrificial victim or moral cannibal. And by the way, we do see exactly what she's doing in our modern day charity-filled society, where people can come to your door and ask for money. You don't give them enough. They throw it back in your face. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't enough. And they feel like they can ask you for money all the time. So what Ayn Rand is pointing out here is a very, very fine line that the Torah is going to need to walk. If we're going to insist that charity is a value and a virtue, which we do insist charity is a value and a virtue, the tzedakah. And I'm not talking about donating the kiddush. I'm not talking about paying your shul fees. Right? Charity is a very specific definition in Judaism. Helping somebody who is destitute to survive. Not supporting Torah learning. That's nice. It's important. It's not charity. But if we create an obligation to give charity, then we also are creating a society which will feel like it can live balance. And indeed, Judaism does balance that. Because Judaism says it's better, you're supposed to make your Shabbat like a weekday, meaning eat one fewer meals on Shabbat, don't have such nice food, and don't go to live than to accept charity. So Judaism has balancing principles here. We're not saying you mustn't accept charity, or you must not give charity. We're saying you should give charity. But we're also saying you must do that charity. There's a balancing act here, right? And just to finish off, look in source number 13, Rabbi Eliezer Melamed. He's written a long article about the welfare state, and he's contrasting socialism with the Jewish perspective on economics. And he says like this. According to the Torah's way, Ha'adam, humans, included in humans, all humanity, is also poor people. He is the prime person who is responsible for his own situation. And only when he tries to look after himself and can't, either he's ill or he's elderly or whatever it is, there's a circumstance which is preventing him from being self-sufficient. Only in that case, he says, only then do you have an obligation in Torah to help this person. And doing it this way, the person accepting charity from becoming, in the words of Ayn Rand, a moral cannibal, and demanding food and demanding money, and it prevents us from becoming, in her words, sacrificial victims. Our money is not free for all for the destitute, right? And he says, this is the most ethical position to take. Why? Because in the second paragraph, free choice and achrayut ishit and personal responsibility are the foundation upon which the ethical man exists. We insist that each human being must bear the consequences of what they do. And so therefore, we mustn't create a society like Sodom, where charity is outlawed, but we also mustn't create a society like a welfare state, where you can sit in your home, not working, perfectly healthy, capable of going out into the workforce, playing video games, and collect a welfare check. Right? Okay. So I just want to finish off by saying that we read about Sodom, and it seems to be very amorphous what the problem is. I think the problem is simply that they're not valuing, they're not seeing how the life of a human being is important, and therefore they're not supporting it when he falls destitute. But by the same token, we also must value the lives of human beings and realize that by giving them too much charity, we also can end up destroying them. Thank you. That's right. Exactly that.
We'll finish the Zoom now. For those on Zoom, we'll see you all next week or whenever you join us again. So I'll just say goodbye to you now if I can. Somewhere around. 1 second. I'm going to do the guy. They're going to do the bracha. They're not actually.